You know what's surprising? I couldn't even imagine that someday I'll take a review of this car and I can go for a ride behind the wheel. Emotions are overwhelming. There are several reasons for this. First, very few such models were produced. Second, they were all exploited by departments inaccessible to mere mortals. And yes, the most important thing, for almost half a century of use, according to unconfirmed reports, there are only 2 cars left in working condition. But that's not accurate. But it is known for sure that 5 such cars were produced. The initiative belonged to the Gorky Regional Party Committee. They say it would be nice to produce an SUV based on a comfortable and modern car at that time. But please note that GAZ-24 was very modern. The car was developed from a pure perspective by several design teams. About 20 running prototypes were built to test the technology in units. Before you is the brainchild of engineers led by Tsikolenko and Kareev. The Volga went into production in 1967 and was produced until 1986. And only in 1974 they decided to make the Volga all-wheel drive. And yet similar actions have already been done with civilian cars at GAZ. During the Great Patriotic War, MK then GAZ M72 then M22, in short. The experience was it and it was used. Is it a joke? Less than a year passed from idea to implementation of this car. There are no external changes at all, it's still GAZ-24. With strict lines, good glazing and moderate chrome plating. But can we call the front grille and bumper moderately chromed? Just beautiful. But how to fit in something that cannot fit? This is probably the most popular Russian question, to which we always find the answer. SUVs are equal, but Volga doesn't. And the bolt with this frame. Cars were then made of real metal, and the strength of the supporting structure was built in with reserve. And I already talked about the experience in creating such equipment. UAZ base 2,380 millimeters. Volga is longer, 2,800 millimeters. The transfer case is tightly attached to the box on the UAZ. If installed as is, the cardan shafts will approach the axles at 2 large angles. Will shake everyone and everything. Take elements from UAZ 69, so it's already discontinued. There were no options, they separated the UAZ transfer case from the box. Another shank was welded to the Volgevskaya gearbox, and they were connected with a handmade cardan. Then everything was a little simpler, relatively simpler. The front axle is spring, while the Volga mother has a spring axle. What to do? Weld everything that is possible and necessary and roll up another axle. To strengthen the leading edge of the spring, a transverse beam was welded in front. Here it is hidden under the apron. A towing eye is also welded here. Access to a crooked starter. Front number. Leaned back. But that is not all. Then the rear part of the springs was secured by drilling a hole in the spar. Also installed bumpers to prevent the bridge and the engine crankcase from meeting. The steering linkage had to be moved forward and the steering shaft had to be enlarged or extended. But the front axle is not from the UAZ as it might seem. This is the rear axle from the Volga. They turned it over, shortened the stockings and screwed it on the sides, welded the steering knuckles from the UAZ. And also, you won't see this, but take my word for it, a cam mechanism of increased friction is installed here. The gears have been removed in a similar way installed on the GAZ-66, only this one is smaller. It was developed for the sports Volga. And also the jet thrust was removed. And again, being in the front of the car, admiring the fanged bumper, we open the hood and look at what is eternal. States have collapsed, cars are rotten, and ZMZ is eternal. Gasoline, carburetor, inline, 4-cylinder, volume 2,445 cubic centimeters, maximum power 95 horsepower and sometimes 90, 80, and even 75 at 4,500 RPM. Maximum torque 186 Newton meters at 2,200 to 2,400 RPM. Cylinder diameter 92 millimeters, piston stroke 92 millimeters. Visually, everything is the same. Yes, it is. From the brightest, increased, and moved the oil bath, but also moved the gas outlet pipe. Ideally, there should be a different logo here. A deer on a green background is a huntsman's. But where did it go? Ask the keepers of time. And the rubber is here now. From UAZ. And also, the oil receiver and the crankcase itself was rebuilt, moved. The rear axle also has nothing in common with the UAZ. It is from Volga. To increase ground clearance, the springs pass over the axles. They are under them. By the way, a reaction rod was installed at the rear. Naturally, they changed the mounting location of the shock absorbers and welded a new exhaust system. Why am I going into the trunk? To imagine how inconvenient it is to put wild boars here. This is the height, but it will fit a lot of 700 liters of volume. And under the floor, there is a gas tank for 50 liter. True, all the free space in the trunk is occupied by a huge spare wheel. And here it should have been installed. Oh my lord. Special communications. There's not much to say about the salon. Everything is, as it was, regular Volgas, without an ounce of decoration. The only thing worth noting is the height. The second is a 74 car at the turn of 74, and there is already a modern speedometer at that time, not a tape one. Third, in the cabin, the levers from the transfer case cut a hole in the floor, strengthened them, installed the transfer case. And there is also a mass button here. That's probably all. Radio. With CD changer, by the way. Model a 275E. There's even a warranty card. You understand that there was no CD changer. This is a foundation for the future. People looked into the bright, socialist future, and there every person had to have a CD player. The fate of the GAZ 2495 model was unenviable. They wanted to put the car into production, but the plant itself did not want to spend money on its production. Now, if someone ordered it, then yes, we can make it. But for now, here are presentation copies for you. Break them. So that you understand fully, this car has not been driven since 1980 or 86 or about 88. And then, of course, they restored it a little, but overall it didn't drive at all, and doesn't really want to go. Open the hood for me, please. Something falls out there. A bolt came loose and fell to the floor, which holds the aspiration. Doesn't respond to aspiration at all, sorry. Volga that doesn't move at all. If the Volga just doesn't drive, it does it sweetly, softly, slowly, at ease. Everything is completely different here. This Volga is screaming at you, save, help, as if an alien is holding you by the ass and doesn't want to let go. And this huge turning radius, 7.3 meters. LIAZ 677 has a turning radius of 9.6 on the outer wheel. But this car is not intended for driving on good roads. This 24K, according to legend, was transferred to the Zavidovo hunting farm, and Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev drove it for a short time, but not at the wheel, but as a passenger. Didn't like it, again according to legend, he didn't like the car. About tires and consumption. A letter was sent to the company from Zavidovo. Please send us regulations on the consumption of fuels and lubricants. Did anyone actually do this regulatory act? It was still done on the knee. They thought at the factory and decided to let it be 14 liters. But actually, I think more than 20. About tires. Real. The car was immediately fitted with wheels not from UAZ, but from Chaika. Moreover, Tchaikovsky winter tires are 8.5 by 15 mounted on a wheel from model 21. Of course, it's terrible to turn around on this trough. But okay. The designers could not overcome the hum from the word at all. How did they fight him? Everything that is possible here is covered with felt and wrapped in the same. And it has become a little quieter. This is Soviet sound insulation, but they couldn't really do anything about the vibration. Today GAZ 2495 lives in the warm pavilion of the Museum of the Special Purpose Garage of the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, surrounded by its fellow government limousines. Hum noise vibration something I started to complain. Volga with a ground clearance of 205 millimeters, and I like it. Well, who else has ridden one of these? Brezhnev. And me. Drift. Russian drift. A high Volga that wants to go into the snow. A strange feeling, honestly. I really drive like in a UAZ, behave like in a UAZ, just as oaky, just as bouncy. No, softer of course, the body is longer after all. But it's a pity that such cars are no longer produced. I would probably today. For fun, I would definitely take the same one. Due to additional mechanisms, the weight of the car increased by only 90 kilograms and amounted to 1490. Maximum speed is up to 115 kilometers per hour, but during testing they were able to accelerate the car up to 140, but this is also not accurate. If anything, the Gorky automobile plant became the first in the world to build a luxury SUV. For some reason the Americans didn't think of this. In general, our designers always have good thoughts, brilliance, and implementation. Well, that's the kind of implementation. C'est la vie. The hunt continues.